and welcome to the Doofcast, the official variety podcast of doofmedia.com. My name is Scott Daly, and I am your host, and this is my patient, Matt Freeman. Matt, you're looking quite unwell. Have you had your treatment today?
I have, and I'm feeling much better now. Oh, by the way, here's a handful of my teeth.
Oh, perfectly normal, perfectly normal. We'll just put them in this large tooth jar. Don't worry about that.
Very good.
This week on the show, it is our 10th and final part of our series, Deconstructing the Films of Gore Verbinski. Today, we're going to be talking all about Verbinski's final film so far, hopefully, 2016's A Cure for Wellness, a movie that I think, Matt, you had never seen before, right?
I had never seen this movie. This is the only Verbinski movie I think that I had never seen.
Yeah, that's got to be right. No, because you know Lone Ranger, man. You hadn't seen Lone Ranger.
I had also not seen The Weatherman, so I'm just full of shit.
You're just a liar. You're just a fucking
liar. No, but I hadn't seen this one either. So, and man, was I happy to rectify that mistake.
Awesome. So we're going to be talking all about A Cure for Wellness, and then we are going to wrap up our Verbinski coverage, kind of talk about what we learned over these 10 movies, and maybe play some fun games with ranking them. I think then we're going to have a quick conversation about who we're going to do next in our Deconstructing series, and kind of related to that, and it's Director Day here as we finish up another of our Deconstructing directors. I thought it'd be fun for us to do another top 5. This will be the top 5 directors that are day one screenings for us. So the directors that make you go out to the theater on the first day, anytime they have a new movie, no matter what the movie is, doesn't matter. If this director has a new movie, you're going to be there.
That's right. That's going to be fun.
It is. So that is our show for the week. Let's get right into it. Let's deconstruct A Cure for Wellness.
There is a sickness inside us, rising like the bile that leaves that bitter taste at the back of our throats. It's there in every one of you seated around the table. Only when we know what ails us can we hope to find the cure.
What do you make of that?
Clearly he's lost his mind.
Our thoughts exactly. We'd like you to go to Switzerland and bring Mr. Pembroke back to us.
What we offer here is a process of purification away from the pressures of the modern world.
You plan to take Mr. Pembroke back with you?
Is that a problem?
He's a patient, not a prisoner.
You here for the cure?
No. Actually, I was just leaving.
No one ever leaves.
Matt, what is this Gore Verbinski movie all about?
An ambitious young executive is sent to retrieve his company's CEO from an idyllic but mysterious wellness center at a remote location in the Swiss Alps, but soon suspects that the spa's treatments are not what they seem.
This movie was written by Justin Haith, who also wrote The Lone Ranger, by the way, with a story credit by Gore Verbinski himself. So he did not write the script, but he has a credit for the story. So I think he and Justin Haith came up with the concept. Directed, of course, by Gore Verbinski. This movie stars Dane DeHaan, Jason Isaacs, and Mia Goth, and that's about it. Very, very much smaller movie than the last few Gore Verbinski films we've been watching.
Yeah, it's funny. I think of Dane DeHaan as the Chronicle kid.
Yes,
obviously he's been in much more than that, but I was pleasantly surprised to see him in this and enjoyed his performance.
Yeah, I want to spend some time talking about Dane DeHaan because he's an actor I have such complicated feelings about. But before we get into that, I want to know, just overall, Matt, what did you think of A Cure for Wellness?
Well, I liked it a lot. It's funny because it's a lot like other things we've talked about, like Crimson Peak in some ways, perhaps. It's a bit like that Leonardo DiCaprio movie,
Shutter Island.
Yeah, and there was something else that I had it mentally compared to. But anyway, I like it more than all of those movies, and I haven't actually figured out why yet.
Interesting.
And I think it's just maybe because Verbinski is a genius, but it could be other things as well. Like, I enjoyed it all the way through. I was glued to the screen. I thought it was beautifully directed. I guess I have some confusions about the story, which I'm sure we'll get into in detail as we go.
Sure.
But yeah, those are my first impressions. How about you,
Awesome.
Scott?
Yeah, honestly, I saw this movie when it came out, and I did not leave it very impressed with it. I thought it was just fine, and I enjoyed it a lot more on this revisit. I do agree with you. This is like classic chameleon Gore Verbinski. This is him doing Del Toro. It's so Crimson Peak-ish. It's crazy. Like the obsession with the gothic, the way the movie looks. He's definitely channeling some Del Toro there. Of course, also Shutter Island, one of my favorite movies ever. I love that movie. I think, Scorsese has done so many movies, so to list it as a favorite Scorsese movie seems crazy, but that's such a good film. And I think I liked both The Crimson Peak and Shutter Island more than this movie, but I really appreciate how Verbinski can just once again channel these other directors and do something that has pieces of him in it, but feels like something else entirely as well.
Yeah, I think, and I don't want to get into a no, this movie's better, you're wrong argument, but I think like the reason why I like this one more is very simply that like I was never bored, whereas in those other movies there were bits where I was just like, what are we doing? Where are we going?
That's so fascinating to me.
Yeah, I don't know why that is exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I think this movie has a very deliberate, slow roll pace. I think Verbinski, what he wants to do in this movie is he wants to kind of very slowly and in a very calculated manner ratchet up the tension and also feed you crumbs of what's actually going on here, like very slowly, very deliberately. And so I'm not saying I was bored, but I think it's doing a very specific kind of thing. So I'm a little surprised as compared to a movie like Shutter Island, which I think moves like crazy. I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think I've seen all of those three movies that we just kind of compared against each other exactly once. And I do wonder if they don't all lose something on a rewatch, because the big, so I'm not going to spoil, those other movies, but this movie, a big part of your investment is like, okay, what's going on exactly? Because we're given, like you just said, we're given pieces, we're given clues, and then you're like, oh wait, was that a hallucination? Is that real? Who's that? Is that who I think it is? Or like you're given red herrings in some cases, and you're piecing it together. But if you just know what the mystery is from the beginning, is that gonna harm your enjoyment? Are you gonna be bored during all the scenes where he's wandering around hallways? And you could say the same about the other two movies too, I believe. So
sure. This is actually my question for you. Did you figure out what was going on before the movie did?
Well, yes, except for the things that I still don't understand.
Sure. But like the overall thing that like this is the Baron and they're using the rich people as test subjects to distill down this liquid that is like the big broad strokes, and the girl is obviously like the little girl that's been talked about multiple times. See, this is, I think, what my main problem with the movie is. And I'm going to compare this to a video game in a weird way, and it's going to take me a second to set this up. So,
okay.
My point will eventually come around. So I recently got Apple Arcade, which is like Apple's video game service that you have to pay money for. The reason I got it is because my wife and I were paying for Apple Music, and one day Apple sent me an email that said, hey, your monthly bill for Apple Music is X, and your monthly bill for our new like Apple like bundle plan is actually a cent cheaper than that, and you get all this other stuff. And me being the idiot I am, we're like, okay, great. So I did that, and then of course they're going to raise the price in like 3 months, and I'll forget about it and then be paying for stuff I'm not using. But that's besides the point. There's a game on Apple Arcade since I've been trying it out called Tangle Tower, and it's a mystery game. And the thing about this mystery game is you, the player, have pieced together a lot of the mystery on your own. But if you don't have like specific clues that you can click on to say this is a clue, it won't let you put pieces of the mystery together. And I found that really frustrating because like I figured this thing out, but I haven't found this one random clue and this one random thing that will be the thing that I need to confront the person about the thing that I, the player, have already figured out. And I think I felt that watching this movie sometimes, where I feel like, I got it, movie. Like, I got it. I know what the mystery is, and I feel like you're just like beating the drum over and over again, almost as if you're afraid that we don't understand some of this stuff yet.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Like, I just feel like the moment that really stuck out with me is, of course, the locket when you meet Jason Isaac's character the first time, and like he pulls you aside and talks about, here's the locket that belonged to the Baron, and he like caresses it so lovingly, and like the camera like spends so much time on it. It's almost as if the movie is like screaming at you, this is important. This is his locket. Do you see he's gonna be the guy? Do you get it? And I don't know, like that it frustrated me at times.
Well, okay, so so I don't like, at that point it wasn't like at that point the idea that it was an immortal Baron who was wearing a skin mask had not occurred to me.
Well, no, but I mean, obviously he's connected to the Baron.
He's connected to the Baron somehow. So I was like, I actually, until pretty close to the end, I actually thought that Hannah was like the great granddaughter, and that he had been, you know, in a fucked up fashion, like creating several generations, and like she was the child of you know, sort of a clone, right? Like several generations down the line.
Mm-hmm.
And of course I was wrong. She was actually just literally his daughter, who was just aging extremely slowly.
Yeah.
So like that's an example of the sort of thing where like you get the gist of it. Like you get the gist that he is, you know, bad and he's doing experiments on people, but you don't guess that he's actually the Baron. You get the gist that she is like, I think I immediately got the gist that she was like a descendant of the Baron, but I didn't get that she was literally his daughter. And then, you know, there's other things that are obvious, like, okay, there's something up with the vitamins they're all taking, but you know, I didn't guess for a long time that it was like an immortality serum.
Yeah,
so
and I guess to better phrase what I'm saying, it's not that like the movie is constructed such that you're going to guess every single twist and turn of it immediately. I just feel like the movie got a lot of notes in the production portion of it where the studio was like, you need to make sure they all understand this. And I feel like it just kind of beat it over your head a little bit. I was like, it's just like, okay, I got what you're saying with this. I get it.
Yeah. I mean, so I think that maybe the movie was like too long. I'll say that.
Yes.
We could have cut out a few of these like swerves. Okay. So like the movie did do one thing that I guess I find somewhat obnoxious in this type of movie, where like, so specifically when our character goes to the town to talk to the cop, and he's like, I have all the evidence. They drilled my tooth out. You've got to listen to me. And the cop is like clearly not trustworthy. And you're like, come on, like,
Mm-hmm.
like at this point you should understand that all these people are in a conspiracy, and you should literally just run to the airport and get on a plane for the US and only stop running when you like get back to your apartment. But instead it's like, no, I'm going to find this cop who already basically ratted on me once. And you're just like that's the sort of thing where it's like, it takes the character, you're with the character, and then when you figure it out, you're kind of ready for the character to figure it out. You're not, you're kind of tired of the treading water.
But he just seems like he can't get to the final bit. Like I'm actually, the moment that the movie confused me the most is he goes and witnesses everything. He goes to the cop and finds out the situation's hopeless. And then we cut to kind of a montage of him just accepting his fate. We do that for a couple minutes, and then he's writing a letter home, just like the letter that was written home before him. And then he's suddenly knocked out of it when he looks at his cast and realizes that whole thing's been bogus. And I was like, what were we doing? Like, what happened to him that he just like fully accepted the brainwashing? And how exactly did the words of the letter snap him out of it in that way?
Well, and how did his tooth come back? which is a related question, actually,
Mm-hmm,
because he's all fucked up, and then you see him come back from the whatever, what do they call it, the filtration or the infusion treatment, where they're using him as like a filter, and then he has his tooth back, and I was going full galaxy brain, and I'm still not entirely sure that I'm wrong about this because I just finished this movie and I haven't had time to read about it, but like were they like dying and being reformed out of primordial soup or something? Like because you see, you know, his mentor is all of his teeth fell out and he's floating in that tank and he's dead, and then you see him later and he's fine and he has all of his teeth, like very clearly he smiles and you see he has all of his teeth. So there's a
Yeah.
thing where there's like rejuvenation or regeneration, and then they dump the body, and then it's like I guess at a certain point eventually the person dies, but it takes like a long time or something. I'm actually still really unclear on like all of that, all that stuff I said.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't have answers for you. I mean, I think one of the things that this movie is excels at, and I want to spend the rest of the time talking about the things I love about this movie because that was really my main complaint. The movie almost resists rationality, and I think it establishes this very early in the movie, where you have the scene where we're flashing back to Dane DeHaan in New York talking to his mother, telling his mother he's about to go on this trip, and then later in the movie, we see he's burying his mother, or his mother's getting cremated.
Right.
And I think what this does is basically establish very early on in this movie that you can't trust everything that you see. That there is, the movie is playing between you know, reality and the delusions of the Dane DeHaan character. And so how much of all the stuff we saw actually happened, how much of it was just in his head? I mean, obviously at the end of the day, yes, they're killing people here. Yes, they're turning them into goop that is keeping people alive forever. Those things are definitely happening. But the minute to moment, the beat to beat moments of the story, how much of that actually happened? Because it's so out there and wild, right? Like when he's in the isolation tank, which is a wonderful scene, it's so wild that, okay, there are eels in there suddenly now, and he's hallucinating them. But also, like, this nurse just walks in, takes off her shirt, and then the guy just starts jerking off to her boob. It's like such a wild scene that just feels completely, it doesn't feel real. It feels fake. It feels like this is too out there to believe. And I think the movie is stuffed with scenes like that.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is that could have all actually happened because the eels are actually, you know, in and out of the facility.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know, all of the employees of the hospital are like, you know, vampires basically. So they could very well just be doing weird shit like that randomly. But yeah, no, you're absolutely right that, you know, it keeps you on edge. I mean, so that just connects to one of my favorite things, which is like the toilet tank keeps you know, ticking to call him over to the window at opportune times.
Yeah.
And what I love about it is this could actually be like a ghost thing or something, because like his mom seems to have like a premonition and she gives him the little dancing figurine.
Yeah.
And
at some point dies.
at some point dies. And then the toilet tank is conveniently calling him over to the window just in time for him to see them taking the bodies into the place. And then when he opens the toilet tank, which like from the first time it happened, I was like, there's something in the toilet tank. It's going to be creepy. Mm-hmm. Then there's eels, but then the eels are gone, but then maybe the eels weren't ever there, but then maybe they were. Yeah. And you're like, okay, so really any of these things could be true. He could be hallucinating the eels. It could be a ghost. The eels could actually be there. and
right.
You're just kept in this constant state of like dreamlike uncertainty, which, yeah. I mean, I think I actually liked it a lot. I thought it worked.
It does work, and I think it's where the visuals of the movie really shine, which I think is the best part of this movie. This is an incredible looking movie. The shot composition again and again. I love the atmosphere. They filmed at a real castle in Germany, and it just it feels like dank and dark. I love the sensory deprivation, like vats and how big they were, and like, oh, just like all of it has texture to it, all of it is creepy and uncertain, and like the windingness of the hallways. I love the scene where he first goes into the spa area and like it becomes a labyrinth where suddenly there's a wall where a door was. Like, it's just again and again, just this imagery is assailing you and filling you with uncertainty, and you're just not sure what to make of any of it.
Right.
And it just puts you in this place where you just don't know what to believe or what you're sure of. I think one of the things that I love about it too is Dane DeHaan's character is such a dick. Like at the beginning of the movie, at least, like we're introduced to this character on a train where he's like screaming at someone he works with, like just being an asshole to everyone. We see his predecessor. The movie opens on his predecessor dying of a heart attack from being overworked and overstressed. Which, by the way, I love that the movie has him die the second he takes a sip of water, which is like the recurring motif of the water in this, and the dangerousness of water in this movie is so good. And it like sets it up from the very beginning. Like he takes a sip of water and then bam, the heart attack hits him and he falls over and dies. It's such a great like seed laying for what's to come in the future.
Yeah. I mean, that's consistent. We also learned that his father killed himself by jumping into the water.
Yep.
It doesn't miss an opportunity. I mean, even the smallest touch that I just loved was when he's looking at the picture from like 1907 or whatever, and he reaches across the table, and you're like, is he reaching for a magnifying glass? No, he's reaching for a glass that has just the smallest amount of water in the bottom, which he uses as a magnifying glass.
Yeah, it's a really interesting idea that, like, you know, symbolically, water is life, water is healthiness, and this movie kind of takes that concept and turns it on its head. That makes it, the water here is what's bad and evil and destructive. And I love that idea that it's taking this thing that we all see as this symbol that's used over and over again to mean life and purity and goodness. And nope, not in this thing. I also like, I don't know how much I believe this, but I saw a trivia on IMDb that said the title "A Cure for Wellness" is supposed to kind of sound like aquifer.
Sure,
I guess if you squint at it, I don't know. But I mean, I don't know. Like the visuals, man, I can't get over it. Like I'm looking at pictures from the movie right now, and the single bathtub in the middle of this tiled room is such a good shot, and the way Verbinski kind of like cranes slowly over the bathtub to reveal Mia Goth, and it's surrounded by eels. I love the scene in the waiting pool where everyone has the exercise balls. Like it's just like the atmosphere of this place is overwhelming in every way, and it really makes all this stuff work.
Right. It's sort of makes it feel like it's a whole world that is just a swimming pool where you're just always surrounded by water.
Yeah. I mean, even when you're not water, like the walls are this kind of aqua green, and everything's tiled as if it's built to take water. It's all good.
Yeah.
And of course the greatest, I love that his leg is in a cast almost the whole time, which presumably is destroyed by water. Like the water would make the cast fall apart.
But it doesn't for some reason.
It doesn't. Yeah.
I mean, that was one thing I definitely thought of a few times, but it's fine. So I did want to talk about the cast also, because I mean, okay, so one thing is it's always good in these movies where your protagonist is like supposed to be made to feel very weak and disempowered and persecuted, to give them some kind of injury, you know, like your rear window or what have you.
Sure.
In this case, he has this cast and the crutches, and I just adored the squeaking, creaking
sound
of every step that he takes. And I found it smart for other reasons besides just like atmospheric. Like it allows you to, I guess, okay, there's a few things. Like one, it gives you a little thing to worry about, because you're like, oh, they're going to hear him, because like he makes so much noise when he's moving. He can't move quietly.
He can't sneak.
Yeah, he can't sneak. He's awkward. He's stumbling around. Yeah, I don't know. I just loved the sound as a touch in particular.
Yeah, no, I think the sound in this movie is very good. I mean, just like the clinking of the water glasses. Verbinski really loves to cut to water. He does it from the very beginning. Like we talked about the guy dying as soon as he takes the thing. There's when Dane DeHaan goes into the boardroom for the first time to meet with the board. there's like this very specific cut to the glass of water and the ice like adjusting as it melts and tinkling against the side of the glass. It's so like, it's weird. It's upsetting in a way. Like, it's just like, why'd you do that? What was that for? And you don't really understand in the movie yet, like why we're having this laser focus on water, and not just water, but reflections. I think this movie uses reflections a lot, and it starts very early as well. I love the shot where he's on the train going into the tunnel, and Verbinski has set this up to where the train is like perfectly reflecting off of itself at the window to just double the train as it heads toward the tunnel. It's just another amazing look. Like everything, this is a beautiful looking movie. It was shot by Bohan Bazelli, is the name of the cinematographer, who apparently has worked with Mr. Verbinski multiple times. He was the DP on both The Ring and The Lone Ranger before this movie.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me to hear The Ring, because there is a lot of that feeling, but also it feels quite distinct. It feels like the colors they're using are very different.
Yeah, I mean, The Ring was going for a kind of drab dreariness. This is going for it's not that it's drab, it's just that it's almost colorless. And like, I love the bottle with the stuff in it. This bright blue bottle is like the only bright color in the whole place. Which and is that makes it stick out so much.
And the blue of her dress matches. I think, speaking of reflections, one thing that I think I noticed, accurately, is that you see her toward the for most of the movie, whenever she's near water, she is standing over water, and the water is like black and like perfectly reflective. You don't see what's under the water, you just see the blackness. And then the reflection. But then that ends when she has her period and she goes into the swimming pool, and then the swimming pool is just like a normal swimming pool, and that's like the first time that she approaches water and it's normal.
I like that. That's really cool. I didn't quite pick up on that, but I love that scene. I love the power of that scene. And I think Verbinski uses cross-cutting a lot in this movie as well. Like there's multiple scenes happening at the same time. So when she is getting her period for the first time, it's cross-cutting with Dane DeHaan discovering some stuff. And then the most disturbing scene in the movie is the near rape that happens at the end of it. And Verbinski's cross-cutting that with Dane DeHaan like desperately trying to get down there. And I think that's just smart, because you don't have to sit with the incredibly uncomfortable rape of your daughter scene, which is just okay. So Jason Isaacs. Let's talk about Jason Isaacs. Who is the best at playing characters that you fucking hate. Like, he's so good at it. I mean, look at his. Like, he was Malfoy in the Harry Potter movies. His character in The Patriot is like one of the first characters in a movie I remember just despising. Like, that movie does such a really good job of making you just fucking hate that guy. He's so good at it. He's so good at like being charming, but in the kind of way that you always see the darkness underneath. And he, of course, eventually just does absolutely despicable stuff. And very true in this movie.
This movie, there were so many moments where he reacts to something that the Dane DeHaan is doing, and it's like perfectly like credible that he could be acting out of earnest, desire to make sure that Dane DeHaan is okay. Like, the movie, for me anyway, for a very long time, kept me uncertain about whether this was going to be one of those movies where the final twist is, Dane DeHaan was actually crazy the whole time, sort of a
Shutter Island.
Sort of a Shutter Island twist. And and the reason is, I think, because Jason Isaacs' performance allows for that ambiguity where you're like, he seems pretty creepy, but also maybe it's true, maybe, and just that perfect, like, there's a lot of, we've talked about this as a particular skill of Verbinski's several times, where he's clearly made sure that the actors know like exactly where we are in the journey, so that the actors can portray, like, the moment when Jason Isaacs sort of drops the metaphorical mask, not the literal mask, is I think roughly like when they discover him kind of under in the restricted section that he's not supposed to be in, and that is like that's when Jason Isaacs starts acting different, right?
Yeah.
So it's just that's just an example. And another so okay so on that note, on the note of like capturing the nuances of performance, like one thing that I can't stand about protagonist wanders around building trying to solve mystery movies, which is a very broad genre, actually includes much more than just these three, is the fact that so often the protagonist just has this like flat, slightly concerned expression for like an hour and a half of the movie until the very end when things pop off, and then then it turns into an action movie. But this movie, I think, did a fantastic job, and I don't know if I should credit Verbinski or Dane DeHaan or both of them, but like the level of concern and panic and fear and sort of like confidence that he's going to crack this thing wide open varies from scene to scene depending on where you feel like the character should be with respect to the situation. It's not just like one facial expression the whole time. So
Sure.
I give him props for that.
Yeah, I mean, I like Dane DeHaan as an actor a lot. I think he tends to be misused. Like the first movie I saw him in was Chronicle, probably just like you, and I thought he was perfect in that movie. And then he kind of went on from there to have a very mixed career where I don't always enjoy the work he's doing. But I like him here. I think this is the perfect role for him because, like we said, he kind of plays this guy who is a very smarmy asshole the first time we meet him. We do not like him the first time we meet him. And then the more we learn about him, the more we see about, the things he went through in his past, like the incredible trauma that is watching your dad jump off a bridge as a kid and not understanding what the fuck is going on. Really just created the person that he is. And so you get to have sympathy for him and you get to pity him. And I think it's part of the whole what is happening and what's going on, that scene to scene, like you go through a scene where you think he's cracked this whole thing wide open, and then we cut to a new scene and it's just like, what, nothing's happening. like what, why are you still there? Like what is happening now? And I don't know. I think that's part of the uncertainty of it, that you're like, wait, did that scene even happen? Does he even believe that he's seeing the things he's seeing?
Yeah. Right. I mean, you're right. Like, I still don't know, to repeat myself, still don't know why he got his tooth back. But I guess in the end, it doesn't bother me. I think it's just a feeling of overall satisfaction that the movie set up a mystery, allowed me and the character to explore the mystery together, didn't waste too much time, made me entertained, and then in the end delivered a satisfying, resolution and character catharsis. And it's always interesting to me how people walk out of the proverbial theater talking about movies of this nature, where your opinion of the movie, unfortunately, can depend very much on how the movie ends. Like I think when I was younger and maybe less, good at consuming art, that I kind of didn't like Shutter Island because it has kind of a downer ending.
Sure.
And it's like, well, that's not fair. Like you can't hold that you can not like the movie for other reasons, but that's kind of not a fair reason to dislike a movie. And this movie has a more sort of optimistic, if ambiguous ending. And maybe that's one reason why I kind of walk away from it, with a grin.
I get that.
I don't know.
Did you feel, one of the things I kind of felt is that I felt like this movie was going to do the sad, disappointing ending, and then it faked us out. And then like the third act is almost at times feels like it's in a different movie. Like I think the escalation of the third act to he lights this place on fire to Jason Isaacs is we are seeing him in the act of trying to rape his daughter, and talking about like the where Verbinski went with that scene continues to shock me, and I've seen it before. Like,
yeah,
that he reaches down inside of her and then smells his fingers and is like, oh, I've been waiting for this for so long, is the most disturbing thing I've ever seen in a movie. Like, it made me viscerally uncomfortable, and I was just like, oh, we're going here. And I feel like the final 15 minutes of the movie feels like another movie ended, and then we're gonna do this on top of it. And it's big. Like, it's kind of the point where the blockbuster director Verbinski comes back a little bit.
Yeah, I sort of felt like the movie was going to end when she finds him sitting on the bench. And he's saying, "Why would I ever want to leave?" And that's going to be our downer ending.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you could even take the probably not true interpretation that like the rest of the movie is like a hallucination. I don't really think that's true. But it definitely, it's funny because it's like it's more like The Ring up until that point, and then it becomes like Pirates or something where it's a fight, you know, it's a fight with shovels and fire and action and monsters. I mean, literal monsters, right? Like
when he rips his face off,
face off, and it's like, okay, this is the guy who made Davy Jones's Crew.
It does feel like a different movie, and part of me wonders if I would have liked it a little better if it did just kind of end on that downer ending, because I'm not like you in that regard, where I actually kind of appreciate the cojones of a downer ending, to just end it like that.
Well, I think I do now. I think this was a much younger Matt who was reacting this way, but go ahead.
I was just like, we haven't touched much on the actual themes of the movie, and I think that's worth talking about for a little while here, because this is a movie that kind of sets itself up to be a critique of a modern corporate lifestyle that is work until you die type of thing. I mean, that's the change in Dane DeHaan's character at the end of the movie, right? Is he is cured of this insatiable drive that, as we see, is going to lead to his early death. Like the man he replaces died of a heart attack while in the office late at night because he was obsessively working. And for all intents and purposes, Dane DeHaan is the same person who will have the same fate. And the experience of this movie frees him from that fate. And I'm curious, like, what you think, what is the conclusion the movie is making with that?
Yeah, it's really interesting because the last shot of the movie makes a lot of things feel kind of ambiguous.
Sure.
The last shot of the movie being him riding away on the bike, and his expression goes from like, you know, intent and serious to like the Joker grin, basically. Mm-hmm. And you're like, did we basically trade one kind of madness for another kind of madness? Is there no such thing as wellness, maybe? Because the doctor says the cure for the human condition is disease, because only from disease can we be cured, or something like that.
Yeah.
And so it's like he's cured of the disease of his father, and you know, the feeling that he had to live up to this, you know, or, you know, succeed at something that he perceives his father to have failed at out of weakness, and, you know, realize that this is a terrible path, but the path that he's taking in response is kind of also a path of madness, maybe. I'm not sure exactly.
Yeah, I don't know if I read that in that smile. I read happiness, but Dane DeHaan is just a kind of a creepy looking dude sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, maybe like I thought so I considered that, and then I looked at the smile and looked at his eyes in particular, and was like, I'm pretty sure he's just doing a Green Goblin smile there.
Possible,
which is, you know, his other character,
which I did not like him in that role at all. I thought that was, I mean, it's not his fault the movie's terrible, but I just did not enjoy that performance.
I haven't actually watched that movie in its entirety because why would I?
Yeah.
But I don't know. Did you have that was my stab. I haven't had much time to process this movie. What was your stab at the themes?
Well, I mean, I find it fascinating that, like, this is a place in which rich, powerful men and women of corporate business, you know, like the most powerful and wealthy individuals are coming to this place because they're miserable and exhausted and need a break. And I think it is saying something that these people are so miserable and tired and unwell that a place that is slowly killing them is a place that they want to stay at as compared to their previous lives. I think Verbinski's trying to say something with that.
Uh-huh. Sure. Definitely the idea that success is a trap that just makes you miserable and not even realize when you're working yourself to literal death. Um,
Yeah, I mean, and it breeds, like, one of the things we see is that, like, they're just constantly, it's not just that these people are working themselves to the bone, they're cheating and lying and in trouble. Like Dane DeHaan's character has kind of has broken laws in order to land the promotion he has.
right.
And is in trouble, and that's kind of the inciting incident that gets him to go on this journey. But,
Yeah.
so it's just like it's a physical destruction, it's a mental and moral destruction. It's they're all, I mean, he is, like, that's the thing, is he is unwell, like, and I think that is what feeds into the whole ambiguity of the movie, is that it's not like this incredibly happy and fulfilled person comes to a wellness retreat and then, like, realizes over the course of the thing that, oh no, I'm actually unhappy and unwell. Like, it's clear to us, the viewer, from the very first time we meet him, that this guy is in a bad place. And I think that's part of what allows you to see the ambiguity of it. Cause, like, this is a part of it, like a series of films. There's so many movies like this where a quote unquote sane person is trapped in an insane asylum or some other hospital, and in every effort to prove that they are fine is just more evidence against them being fine. Like, this is what Shutter Island did. There was a Soderbergh movie called Unsane that did the same thing. Like, and I love this concept because it scares the shit out of me. This idea that, like, I know I'm not crazy, and yet everyone thinks I'm crazy, and every attempt I have to prove that I'm not crazy is used against me to just convict me even more. And I'm trapped and I can't get out, and no one believes, like, that terrifies me.
Yeah, there's even some of this in 12 Monkeys where it's like, God, by the end we want him to be insane.
Yeah. So I love that concept, and I think it's used very interestingly here, because you're right that you, like, while you totally believe that all this is, like, scary, weird stuff going on, you also know that this guy is not all there. Like, he's just, there's something wrong with him.
Right. Well, he's got the terrible trauma from his past, which is true. He's got the, his mother just died, I guess. Apparently. And he tells her he hasn't been sleeping before she dies, I guess, assuming any of that actually happened.
Yeah. I mean, like, a fun game to play here is which of those two scenes actually happened. Both or one.
Yeah. I mean,
and if one, which one? Because I like to think that the only one that actually happened is her cremation, and he just made up the conversation he had with her, the final goodbye conversation, whole cloth. He just made that up.
I'd have to rewatch to see, like, what are context clues. Like is one of them implied to be a dream because he, like, wakes up afterward or something like that? I don't really know.
I don't think so. I mean, I think that there's, the first one is so weird because, like, we're kind of doing this thing where we start with him, in the train on the way, and then we cut back. And so, like, this, it's a J cut where it kind of starts, we hear the audio first, we hear him saying, I'm just going to be going away for a few days. And then we see his mother, and his mother is just, like, barely paying attention to him, painting in her own little world, painting these ballerina figures, which she does so many times. But then we cut back to the mother freaking out when he gets in the car crash. There's a scene when he's in the car crash, when the deer runs into the car, we cut briefly to the mother, like, freaking out and dropping the ballerina figure. And I don't know. I don't know.
Well, there's sort of a weird, hallucinogenic, flashing weird shit montage in that crash. The funny thing about the crash is they hit the deer, and then the car appears to, like, go off the side of the mountain and flip like 45 times.
Yeah.
And like, we see all these images of, like, eels writhing that reminds me of The Ring. And then you cut back after the montage of weird shit, and the car is basically, like, 15 yards down the road, and the deer, like, right next to the deer.
The deer who's, like, slowly walking away with the frame of the windshield wrapped around its body.
Yeah.
And the car's right there. The car's right there.
The car's right there. Nobody was seriously injured, actually.
Yeah.
He didn't actually hurt his leg, and the driver was just a little bit cut up on his face. So it's interesting because like the reality of what actually happened in the car crash is even ambiguous.
Yeah. I mean, it seems extremely convenient, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like it just, I don't know. Like it's all weird. And I think we're supposed to feel these ways for sure.
Yeah. You're supposed to be like, wait a second. What am I? Yeah. I mean, and I think I assumed from pretty early that his leg wasn't actually broken. And I also was like, he can't really have been unconscious for 3 days because he doesn't have an IV. Which may or may not actually be true, but it gave me a feeling of like skepticism.
I like that. I mean, you can just go with it. I don't know if that's an intentional or just an oops, but let's say, yeah, they just lied to him about how much time has passed. I mean, they lied to him about who they told.
Yeah.
They lied to him about his leg being broken. Like, there's no reason us to not think that everything they said to him was a lie.
Yeah.
I did like, I love when Verbinski, like, when he asks to see his boss and the orderly is just like, okay, just sign here. I'm like, no. And I love how Verbinski, like, he cuts in on the signature, but not enough to where you can see the form he's signing, but just enough to where you like know, hey, you didn't read that, and you probably should have read that thing you just signed. Yeah,
and also he's like super smug in the scene too, and you just know this is the character getting, he's gonna get payback for this.
Yeah,
it's fun to watch. Obviously, this is the sort of movie where it really works for him to be a smug asshole, and sort of get tortured in an almost Theon Greyjoy fashion until you're like, okay, he's had enough.
Sure. I think the tooth drilling sequence is one of the most viscerally uncomfortable I've ever been. It's so like, oh my God, and like the blood comes up.
Oh my God. Yeah, like the build up to it and all the devices that they're putting on him, and I mean the way that he's panicking and freaking out is, again, connects to you viscerally. You're just like, no, like I was like squirming and like looking away from the screen, like, no, they're not really gonna like go all the way, and they do.
They do. Yeah,
they do. So you're just like, yeah, I love it. I mean, definitely, I feel like we talk about how Verbinski jumps genres, and every time he does so, it's like he has this, golden notebook full of his insights into like various genres where he's like, this is the correct way to do this genre.
Sure.
And there's so many bits in this movie where he's like, here's how to do making the audience really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I kept thinking about Del Toro and like the way Del Toro damages faces in every movie, and how that's like a shortcut to making you feel uncomfortable. And the tooth scene is actually a version of that, except tooth is even more specific than face.
Yeah.
It's
oh my God.
And then then obviously there's other places in the movie where he does things that make you really uncomfortable. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a movie that is constantly driving to push you out of your comfort zone in multiple different kind of ways. Like, it's in your gross out factor, in your uncertainty, in your like who you believe and who you trust. And I just like, the movie constantly wants to pull at that and pick at that. And like, I love that there's random people that are staying at the wellness center that he keeps talking to, like the woman who's doing crossword puzzles. And like, we're just like really supposed to be uncertain if we want to believe her. Like, there's just all the, like, there's so many little moments of characters like looking at each other in ways that just make you go, well, was there like, was there more to that?
Yeah.
Was that like a knowing nod, or like a, like, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, definitely there's a lot of exchanges between orderlies and patients and stuff where you're just like, I feel like we're missing something, and it makes you the result is to make you uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny because the orderlies go from like, maybe like a slight smirk when he says something like, I'm just gonna find my boss and leave. And like you see that they basically have a straight face, and then they just kind of smirk, and it's very minor, and you could even miss it if you weren't paying attention. To like a scene to like a shot where the orderly just like death staring at him for like a 5 count. And you're just, and you know, and then Dana Han's just like, what the fuck? Which, you know, yeah, the just the using all of the tools at his disposal to make you feel uncomfortable.
Yeah. I think we're kind of nearing the end of this conversation. And I think ultimately for me, I really enjoyed this movie. I think I enjoyed the look of it much better than I enjoyed the moment to moment plot beats of it. I think there's a lot of great stuff going on here, but I wasn't as satisfied with where the movie goes and how it gets there. I loved watching it. I don't know if like I can really pick it apart like thematically. Like we struggled to do that when we tried to do it, you know?
Yeah. I'm gonna have to sit with it for a while, I think, and I don't know. Maybe we can revisit it at some later point in a you know, maybe an end of show segment or something, because, you know, I think one thing that I was thinking earlier is like I would watch literally any Verbinski movie like at any time. Like I love all of them. They're all so fun, and just great and well made. I'm not sure if I feel that way about this one in particular, because, you know, it's a little bit of a confusing mess on the plot level, and also it's super uncomfortable to watch. And I think those two things add up to like, not my favorite.
Sure.
In fact, maybe the opposite of my favorite of his films. So yeah,
I think that's a great way to transition, Matt, to our conclusion on Verbinski. I think one of the things we're going to do is rank these 10 movies from favorite to least favorite. Before we do that, though, I just want to, like, obviously, as you've said many times, you've, from the beginning of this whole thing to the end of it, you've gone through barely knowing who Gore Verbinski is to being in love with him. And so I'm curious, like, if you could distill the why of that down to like a 2-minute conversation, like what is it about Gore Verbinski that makes you say this, that makes you say like, he's my favorite director now?
Well, I think in the end, he ends up making really fun movies that leave you with a solid feeling of like, dang, that was a good movie. Okay. So that's like the high level. On the low level, the reason why that's true is because he just is perfect at the craft of like moment to moment storytelling. It's, you know, you're never bored. You're I mean, we were a little bit confused about this movie, but usually you're not confused. You always know where the character's head is at, so you can always just like kind of slip into the shoes of the protagonist, and you're writing through the story with the protagonist. That's pretty much always true in all of his movies, even from the very beginning. And I think that's actually pretty unique, especially at this level of consistency across movies. And it's also remarkable,
and across genre as well. I mean, to me, it's amazing because like there's so many of these movies are movies that I wouldn't think you specifically wouldn't typically be super jazzed about. Like movies like The Ring are just not a movie I think normally, like, yeah, this is a Matt movie. Even this, I wasn't sure if I would call this a Matt movie. But there's something about this guy that, despite the genre, what he's doing speaks to you. Yeah. I think that's really cool.
Well, I guess one thing that I would say is like, I think any other director makes The Ring and it's a dreary, boring slog. Any other director makes A Cure for Wellness and it's a confusing and probably corny thing that people just make fun of for being ridiculous. But he does these two movies and he makes The Ring into this like, you know, instant classic basically. And Cure for Wellness still manages to be fun and to keep you engaged even when it's confusing. Like he makes the confusing kind of work for him. So yeah, that would be my stab at like why I'm kind of in awe of this guy now.
Cool. Yeah. I really like Gore Verbinski, and I went into this really liking Gore Verbinski, and I think I understand why I like him as much as I do now better, but I'm not sure I would say that like my appreciation for him has like skyrocketed since this thing. Like I still like him. I enjoy all these movies. Sitting looking at this list of 10 movies and being like, okay, let's rank them is difficult because there's not a movie on this list that I hate. You know, there's not a movie on this list that I even dislike. There's movies that I like more than others for sure. But I don't know. I think he's a very talented filmmaker, and I'm kind of confused as to why he just hasn't done that well lately. Like we talked about it last week, but Lone Ranger, financial disaster. This movie didn't make back its budget. Smaller budget, but still didn't make it back. And he hasn't made a movie since. And I don't know. I mean, that we're just supposing like it could just be a personal choice. He could just say, you know, I'm going to focus on different things right now. I'm not going to make movies right now. Sure, certainly could be. But I don't know. I'm interested to see why Verbinski is not like he's not on the list of like great directors, you know, like if you were to Google like best directors working today right now, I don't think you'd see Gore Verbinski on that list. Yeah. And yet he's created one of the most popular franchises of all time. He's made a genre defining horror movie. He's made a great comedy. He's made a great drama. He's made some really good, surprisingly good Western movies.
Yeah.
And you just don't see him talked about in that kind of way.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's just, you know, a director is sort of a brand.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I say James Cameron, or if I say Ridley Scott, or if I say Wes Anderson, like things jump into your head immediately. And I think that for whatever reason, Verbinski has failed to not maybe Verbinski himself, maybe like the PR apparatus of Hollywood has failed to like imprint Verbinski into people's brains as like, oh yeah, Verbinski, and then like have pirates jump into their brain because for whatever reason I didn't have any strong associations with his name, you know.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, it might literally just be that like he pays less attention to that kind of thing, and thus it hasn't you know, he hasn't basically made sure that his branding is stuck in our heads. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think you're onto something there. I mean, it is true that the movies that he made are, because so many of them are like big machine tentpole movies, the director kind of gets lost in that a little bit. Like I think it's the interesting thing about like the push and pull of the MCU, where some of these MCU movies we know who these directors are. Some of them we really don't. Like I know who the Russo brothers are, but like, does the average person that went and saw Avengers Endgame know who the Russo brothers are? No, they don't.
Right.
Like, what is the brand of the Russo brothers? And I think Verbinski has the same problem. That like the type of movies he's making, you're just not going to know about him. And I love the fact that his career is so mixed, that he does do these big budget movies, but he does these smaller movies like The Weatherman, like even this, A Cure for Wellness, like The Mexican. These are much smaller movies. And yet maybe it's because he's a chameleon, you know, maybe it's because he changes himself so much to explore these different genres, that who Gore Verbinski is not easily summarized, and therefore not easily marketed.
Yeah.
And packaged.
Yeah, the marketing and the packaging, and like even just kind of the way critics talk about things. Like, you know, if you see you know, a new movie from Ridley Scott, you know, you just know critics are going to be like, oh, I'm so excited, Ridley Scott is a genius.
Mm-hmm.
They're not necessarily going to say the same thing about Verbinski. And it's like, well, why is that? Is that because he's not a genius? No, I think it's just because like everybody knows Ridley Scott is a genius, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like that you're just supposed to, you know, it's, or like Kubrick, it's like, it's a Kubrick film. Yeah, Kubrick's a genius. It's like, yeah, like Verbinski is probably a genius, if not literally genius. Whatever, words don't mean anything if he's not a genius, is what I would say.
Sure.
Very, very good at what he does. and but like because the movies he makes are well, okay, so he made Pirates, which I think some people maybe have that snobbishness to them where they're like, oh yeah, he made those commercial movies. Yeah, he made those commercial movies, the Pirates movies. Yeah, he's kind of a commercial director. Yeah, he's kind of a sellout shill director, which is obviously unfair because he also made The Ring. But
do you think, like, I wonder if that feeling about directors has gone away, that idea of you selling out, because like I think what we see in modern filmmaking these days is you have a director that makes like a small but popular indie movie, and then they get the next Batman or the next MCU.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like you have Chloe Zhao, who won the Oscar for Nomadland, right? And now this year she has a Marvel movie coming out, The Eternals. It's a massive tentpole Marvel movie. Are people saying Chloe Zhao sold out? I mean, some might. There might be some people out there, I'm sure, on film Twitter talking about how could you do this to us, Chloe Zhao. But I think for the most part, people are just like, no, this is how the business runs now. And I wonder if Verbinski was just a few years too early on that.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I do think a lot of it just has to do with like image, which is sort of ineffable. And
sure.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Yeah. I think the one constant refrain I saw from our listeners throughout this entire project was Verbinski made that movie.
Right.
I mean, that's like the thing that we saw again and again and again was like, Verbinski made The Ring. Verbinski made The Weatherman. Verbinski made The Lone Ranger. Like, this is, people know him as the Pirates director, and that's just about it.
Yeah. We need to send him an email and just be like, hey, were you aware that whoever is in charge of your like personal brand is not doing a good job?
Yeah, who's your manager?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. All right. Let's rank them.
All right.
This was difficult actually for me. Let's start at the bottom and work our way up.
All right.
So what do you have as your least favorite Verbinski movie?
Well, you know, maybe this is whatever the opposite of recency bias is, but I just said I don't think that A Cure for Wellness is my kind of movie, and it has some problems. So I'm going to put that one at the bottom.
Yeah, that's where I put it too. A Cure for Wellness at the bottom for sure. What about number 2?
You know, again, I struggled as well. Let's not hem and haw too much though. I put The Mexican at the second from the bottom place. I think based on our conversation about that movie, it has some story problems. Like, I think I remember one comment that I made was like, the movie should have just ended like 30 minutes earlier. Like, it's just such a long movie, and the whole last bit is just like, okay, you could, like, we even made a specific suggestion of how the movie should have ended, and it would have been both like way shorter and probably better actually.
Sure.
So that's I mean, it's still a good movie, but yeah. It falls there for me.
Okay, I put The Lone Ranger, a movie that I was surprised at how much I enjoyed, but still, just compared to the rest of the movies, I think that movie, just the problems. It's a good movie. I liked it. It's just, it's kind of a mix of two different kind of movies, and that mix just puts it at the bottom of my list, or near the bottom of my list, rather.
All right.
What's next?
Next, I put Pirates 2, which I've sort of always. I think I like the Pirates movies better after rewatching them recently for these discussions, but now we're in the domain of me putting other movies above them because I enjoyed them more, not because I find that these movies had terrible flaws.
Yeah, I mean, that's the fun of lists. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, right. How about you?
I put Mouse Hunt as my third to last. A movie that I really liked. I don't know. Like, it's fun. I had a good time with it, and that's really it. Like, I've kind of forgotten most of it since we watched it.
Sure. Yeah, it's a nostalgia movie for me, but I also think it's really good. I don't think it's just nostalgia.
Mm-hmm. What's next?
Pirates 3, I think I enjoyed more than Pirates 2, and I especially, like, I remember just not liking it. Actually, I remember thinking it was the worst one, and then when I rewatched it, I sort of it found a place in my heart, and so it actually bumped out Pirates 2. So yeah, that's
gotcha.
My fourth from the bottom pick.
All right, my fourth from the bottom is The Mexican. I agree with basically everything you said about it. I think I just like it just a little bit more than you do. I just love Brad Pitt and Julia Roberts and James Gandolfini. I think James Gandolfini by himself elevates this movie like 5 points.
Yeah.
He's so incredible in it.
Yeah. I mean, I think any of these picks could jockey like 3 or 4 places up and down depending on my mood.
Yeah, I mean this doesn't actually matter.
Yeah, right. My next pick, basically middle of the pack, is Lone Ranger. So I placed that much higher than you did, and I think I just found it just to be incredibly fun and surprising and emotionally, like way more emotionally impactful than I thought it would be. In particular, I think it was kind of weird, but like that may be the movie that affected me emotionally. No, not the most, because I think Rango probably affected me emotionally the most. The cartoon about the lizard was the one that affected me emotionally the most. But yeah, I can't put it higher than that, but I also don't feel like putting it lower than that.
That's fair. I put Pirates 2 as my next one. This is my least favorite of the Pirates movies. And it's not even because it's a bad movie. It's just, it feels like it's the one that's the most incomplete, because it is not a complete movie. It is just a hanging chat of a movie that is going to be picked up in the third one, the triumphant third one. So that's where I put that's my middle of the pack movie is Pirates 2.
All right. Next I put The Weatherman, which was I don't know. It's a very unusual movie, right?
It certainly is, yeah.
And it's just kind of great. I love Nicolas Cage. I think I think Nicolas Cage is what bumps that movie up a few points for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's way less fun than any of the other ones, but it's Verbinski doing something maybe more artistic, just sort of making like this is him making a small artistic introspective movie, which again he still does better than anybody else as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, I love that movie.
Yeah. For my number, what are we at, 5, I put The Ring. This was a hugely influential horror movie on me. It was a hugely influential horror movie on the world, and I just love this movie, and I love how much it still works even today. So really, really good movie. Doesn't just quite get to the top of my thing, but that's The Ring, a movie I will watch at any moment, anytime, and scare the shit out of myself.
Yeah, I put The Ring at number 4. It's sort of a perfect horror movie. It's I don't know. It's a masterclass, right? Mm-hmm. You could study it. Yeah, basically what you said. What's your number 4?
And I put The Weatherman at number 4. So we just kind of swapped the Weatherman and The Ring. And I think this is just nostalgia. Like this is a movie that, like we said on the episode, this is a movie that hit me at a certain point in my life, and it just spoke to me specifically at that point. It just felt like this was a movie made for me to enjoy, and I just loved it. I had forgotten how much this movie meant to me until I watched it for the first time in forever. And it is as you said, it is a masterclass, and in this kind of small dramatic type of movie that they really don't make anymore. And I love it. I love it so much.
Yeah, me too. All right, my number 3 was Mouse Hunt. It shouldn't really be that surprising. I'm not joking. Like I love this movie. I've always loved this movie ever since I was a kid. I think it's kind of a one of a kind movie, because normally when you make these like silly, bumbling slapstick movies, they're just piece of shit garbage movies. This is like a really good movie with a really solid heart, really solid emotional storytelling, the relationship between these brothers. There's this great edge of darkness to it, where you have, like the fact that they drop their father's coffin on the church steps and he goes into the manhole and all that. Like it's this dark humor. It's delightful. It's like it just pushes all the right buttons for me, and it is a nostalgic movie for me, but I don't think it's just nostalgia that makes me say that.
Sure. No, I think that's fair.
Cool.
For my number 3, I put the first Pirates movie, which means spoilers. that my favorite Pirates movie is the third one, but we'll get to that. I like we talked about on that episode, I think this is a very well constructed, perfectly structured action film that is just really delightful in just about every way. It's kind of a miracle this movie is as good as it is. I think it's a better movie than the other two Pirates movies. I just don't like it as much, which is a confusing thing to say, but it's the truth. I think this is the best made and the best structured and the best constructed of these three movies, but the third one just has a special place in my heart. But Pirates 1, it's a really good movie. It changed the world in a lot of ways. I think we can't underestimate how insane of an idea it sounded like when they decided to make this movie. Like, it just, not only were pirate movies notoriously unpopular, but it's based off a theme park ride. What? We do that? And now we do it. We just did it again. So Pirates 1, number 3.
Yeah, right. I always say I'm just old enough to have had the thought that, wow, this sounds like a stupid idea. I bet that movie's gonna suck. And now it's a movie that I love, and I actually put Pirates 1 at my second place.
Oh wow!
For all the reasons you just said, I think it's like you said, it kind of changes the world. It kind of changed blockbuster filmmaking and kind of showed everybody, how it's done.
Yeah. And my second place, as we hinted at before, will be Pirates 3 at World's End, a movie that, like I said, I don't think is as good as the first one, but a movie that is everything I love about Gore Verbinski all rolled up into one movie. It is big, it is crazy, it is complex and weird, and like, just describing this movie to a person who hasn't seen it makes you sound like a crazy person, and yet it all functions dramatically for me. Like, the moments that you want to feel the dramatic weight of this giant climax of a movie, it works. It works on me. I love this movie so much. I can't believe Verbinski got to do what he wanted to do with this movie. Like, I'm sure there were meetings in boardrooms where they're like, are we really gonna let him make the woman turn into a giant and then turn into a bunch of crabs? Like, are we? Right? Is that really what we're doing?
Gore, we have some questions about this scene with Johnny Depp in the desert, where he's talking to himself for like 15 minutes. Are we sure about that?
Does that have to go on for that long? Yes. And he got to do it. Like, how, like that. I mean, the saddest thing to me about Gore Verbinski is he got to do it. He got to make that movie. And I don't think he's ever going to get that kind of cachet ever again because of the failure of The Lone Ranger, because of the disappointing nature of A Cure for Wellness. Even if he continues to make movies, which God willing he will, I just don't think he's ever going to get that much money and that much freedom that he did on Pirates 3.
I mean, I hope you're wrong, but he certainly left a smoking crater in Disney's budget for that year. So
that's true.
Scott, do you want to do the honors of telling everyone what both of our number one pick must necessarily be?
This the least surprising thing ever to me that we both picked the same movie for number one, but we both picked for number one the best Gore Verbinski movie and one of the best movies of all time. It's got to be Rango, man. It's got to be the animated lizard movie.
It's the animated lizard movie that we've covered on 2 different Doofcast episodes, which I never heard of, and turned out to be just this incredible, delightful, perfect gem of a thing. Which we've really talked about a lot already, but
we don't have to talk about it again because we've done this enough. But I agree with you. I mean, there's people out there that listen to the show that still haven't watched Rango, and I just have to say, folks, go watch Rango. It's really, really good.
It's delightful and fun. I don't know what other words.
So fun. I'm probably gonna go watch it as soon as we finish recording again, because it's just one of those movies that I could do that with anytime I want.
Yeah, me too. Well, yeah, I'm not gonna start watching it, but I know what you mean.
All right. Well, that is the end. That is the end of Gore Verbinski. It feels like, I don't know. I know it was 10 episodes over several months, but it feels like this flew by. It feels like this is the fastest one we've done.
It does. Yeah. I mean, I can still kind of freshly remember a lot of these conversations. I feel like this was maybe the example of like me actually feeling like I had come to understand and appreciate the director more and more with each movie.
Sure.
Which is kind of, I mean, it's not like that's never happened before. I feel like something similar happened with, the Wachowskis, for example. but I think Verbinski is one where like I feel like I learned a lot about directing.
Yeah, directing and like the many facets of directing. I think Verbinski is one of those that I think we correctly zoomed in on as an actor as director. And I think seeing the way he can pull performances out of people, I think is really remarkable.
Yeah, me too.
All right, so goodbye, Gore Verbinski. Thank you so much. It's time, Matt. It's time to move on. We were considering like bringing all the lists back and picking this way, but a thing happened while we were doing Gore Verbinski. Do you want me to tell you what the thing was?
Yes.
The thing that happened while we were over the course of the past few months is I listened to a podcast of people that I normally respect and like talking about the movie Aliens, and they were saying things about aliens that were not the correct things.
Uh-huh.
And I think after I finished listening to this podcast, I messaged you and I said, Matt, we got to do James Cameron next. And so I think that's what we're going to do. Our next Deconstructing series, which won't start right away, we'll probably give it a little bit of time, will be on the films of one Jim Cameron. I'm trying to count how we got Piranha 2, The Spawning, Terminator, Aliens, The Abyss, Terminator 2, Judgment Day, True Lies, Titanic, and then Avatar. There are a couple documentaries in there. We probably won't do those, right? I mean, did a lot of documentaries after Titanic.
Yeah, I'm mildly curious, but not so curious that I think it will compel me to actually watch that. But
sure.
Yeah, I think when we did our last round of picking, where we settled on Gore Verbinski, I believe that I recall that James Cameron was at least one of the picks that I had placed near the top that didn't quite make it. So very happy.
On the cusp. Yeah.
Very, very happy to cover this.
And I do think there's a lot to say about James Cameron. I mean, everyone knows Jim Cameron. Everyone knows Jim Cameron's movies. I've seen every single one of these movies well, that's not true. I have not seen Piranha 2, The Spawning. So the first movie that James Cameron directed, I have not seen, but I've seen every single other one of these movies. But I feel like because of his choice in the last 12 years of his career to double and triple and quadruple and whatever, I don't know how many avatars he's planning, but a lot. But his decision to kind of make the next and possibly the last part of his career living in the world of Avatar has kind of colored people's perception of who this guy is, I think. And I really want to revisit him from the beginning and walk our way through it and really get reacquaint myself with who James Cameron is as a director and a person and a storyteller, because I think there's a lot here in these movies, and they're all incredible in their own ways, and I'm really looking forward to diving into them.
I agree. Yeah, it's been a long time since I've seen some of these movies that I love so much, and I look forward to really analyzing them for the first time.
Yeah, revisiting Avatar for the first time since 2009. Literally have not watched that movie since I walked out of the theater in 2009.
That's interesting. One thing I will say is every James Cameron movie that I've shown my kids, they have really liked. So
yeah, I mean, I really want to get down to get to the bottom of what is it that makes, because he rolls the dice and he gets sixes like that, like that again and again and again. And at some point it's not a man gambling. It's just a man that's really fucking good at his job. And I really want to figure out exactly what it is in that job. Like, what is it a movie about Titanic that makes it the biggest movie of all time?
Right.
And then of course only to be supplanted later by another biggest movie of all time.
Uh-huh.
I don't know.
Which is yeah. Right. I mean, I think that's something that'll be fun to talk about, is the idea that he is sort of engineering his movie's success at a level beyond just making a really good movie. I mean, he's absolutely making a really good movie, but he's also a very shrewd businessman. And I think it's fair to talk about that. So
sure,
that'll be something maybe we talk about more than we usually talk about in Deconstructing Directors movies.
I am into it. So that will be Deconstructing Cameron starting soon-ish. We don't know exactly when that's going to happen, but it will be sometime soon.
All right.
Doof. All right, Matt, speaking of directors, we're going to wrap this week's episode up with our top 5 directors that are day one screening. So you might have more than 5 directors that you will go see day one, no matter what they release. But I've limited you here, Matt, to 5.
Yes.
So let's begin. And again, the order doesn't matter. We're not counting down or anything. Just start with whoever you want. So who is your first director that you will go see their movie? And Matt, before you say anything, this isn't because a movie that you really, really want to see is coming out soon. I think you know what I'm saying here. You can't pick Denis Villeneuve just because of Dune.
Well,
this is no matter what the movie is that they're releasing, no matter what you know about it, you will be there because of the director.
Right. Well, and that is how I took this. So some directors didn't make this list who I think are great directors, but I don't think their batting average is high enough to actually justify me going to see every single movie. And I don't love them, and I don't love everything they do. Whereas I think I do have 5 directors where I basically love everything they do.
Okay.
So I'm going to get this one out of the way first because it changes up too well, which is James Cameron. And we can almost just kind of dispense with that immediately because we already talked about why he's awesome, and we're going to spend a lot of time talking about why he's awesome. But I mean, I think I've loved every one of his movies, and if he were to come out with another one, you know, I would break my hand trying to reach for my wallet.
So has his obsession with Avatar has not damaged this for you at all?
No, I mean, I just hope that those movies actually come out because I'm sure they're going to be awesome. Like, I honestly think that like the Avatar backlash is just stupid, and people like when the new movies come out, they're going to be great, and I'm going to love them.
Yeah, I mean, I think the funniest thing about the Avatar has had no cultural impact meme is that because people say that meme so much, that's Avatar's cultural impact. So like, you just proved yourself wrong. You just played yourself, people. So yeah, I mean, I think Avatar has had a huge amount of impact. Like both, just I mean, technologically, like that movie changed how people shoot movies. So it's I don't know. I'm with you on this. He's not on my list, but I like James Cameron a lot, and we're gonna spend a very long time talking about it.
Yeah. All right. Who's the first one on your list?
Surprising no one. Number one. The first one on my list is M. Night Shyamalan, a director who I will literally watch anything he does. If he puts his name on it in any place, I will be there to watch it. He just came out with a new movie a couple weeks ago. Old. I have seen it. This kind of proves my point. I have an infant, but I found a way to get a babysitter and get out and see this freaking movie because I needed to do it. And maybe we'll talk about Old one day. I quite enjoyed that movie, but I mean, we did a whole Deconstructing Director series on him, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about M. Night Shyamalan, but he's the type of filmmaker that just makes me happy that he's still getting to make movies. Like, this is something I was ranting at you about a couple weeks ago, where like I feel like every time an M. Night Shyamalan movie comes out, people on the internet get really snarky about him and like make fun of his movies and make fun of him and like get annoyed with like the whole second coming of Spielberg thing that like he didn't pick the cover of that magazine. That wasn't his fault. But like in a world in which we have like franchise and sequels and all these things are constantly happening and the MCU has changed the game, and Night Shyamalan just like keeps coming out with really inventive, weird and funny B movies, and he just keeps doing it, and he's just like gonna just keep doing it for as long as he can. And I feel like that should be celebrated even if you don't love the movies.
Yeah, I think I saw a fun tweet by some critic clapping back at people criticizing Shyamalan, saying something like he's exactly the filmmaker that you people say that you want.
Yeah.
And yet you find all these really rather petty things to complain about.
And look, I'm not even saying that you must like the movies, but like I just feel like the conversation around Shyamalan every time he comes up with a new movie is incredibly dismissive and cruel, regardless of what you felt of the movie.
Yeah.
It frustrates me.
And reductive and not giving him the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah. All right, Matt, what is numero 2?
Okay, well, I didn't really rank these for the record, but
the ranking doesn't matter.
Yeah, the next one would be Villeneuve. I really had to.
I told you can't do this.
I know, but I really had to kind of think about it actually, because I was like, is it true? It has to actually be true that if I found out that Villeneuve was releasing a new Pee Wee Herman movie next week that I just hadn't heard of, would I go see that? And the answer is yeah, I think I would. I think I would. And his early career movies were like really artsy and weird, and frankly not my favorite. But I think his more recent movies have all been just absolute home runs. And so at this point, I have a lot of faith that whatever he turns out is going to be great.
Sure. I'm just going to go ahead and pick my number 2 and also say it's Villeneuve. Like
Okay.
I was debating on whether or not I wanted to intentionally pick a different thing than you, but it would just be lying to myself. No, I will see whatever he does. Like I think like if unlike you, I really loved his early stuff. I think Prisoners and Enemy are just wonderful movies, and I do agree that he's gotten better. And I mean, like the 1, 2, 3 of Sicario, Arrival, and Blade Runner 2049, like I'm done. Like that you've got me forever now.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm excited about Dune, but it's not just because of Dune for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to remain like zen about Dune, because I have a tendency to get overexcited about stuff, especially stuff where I have a bias toward it. But it's like I'm really not even thinking about Dune when I say Villeneuve.
Yeah.
It's just that's a bonus.
Like, watch, let's test this, Matt. It's been announced that Denis Villeneuve is making a new Cleopatra film. Will you see that?
Absolutely.
There you go. Are we done? Like, and that's going to be true for anything you could put him on. I will be there.
Is he making a new Cleopatra film?
Yes.
Oh shit, that's gonna be great. I can't wait.
All right, what is your third one?
Surprising no one, Gore Verbinski.
That's cheating. You're cheating.
I know, but look, I think there may actually only be 5 directors where I'll go see all their movies. So Verbinski has to be on that list, especially after this project. I'm just like, shit. I haven't disliked a single movie he's made. Like my least favorite pick was still one where I just spent an hour talking about how much I liked it, and maybe was a little bit confused here and there. I think we've said enough about Verbinski, but yeah, I mean, I will go see anything he makes. I'm very excited about his next movie that I hope he's making, Spaceless. So
yeah, I mean, I will absolutely go see anything Verbinski makes too. He just did not quite make my top 5 of those things.
Very well.
So for my third pick, I'm going to pick a relatively new director whose 2 films I have absolutely fallen in love with. It's going to be Jordan Peele. I will see anything Jordan Peele puts his name on for sure. Both Us and Get Out were incredible movies that I just adored. I loved both those movies so much. I love what he's doing. I love his sensibility. I love how he mixes horror and comedy in this really fun way. They just showed I think it was just a poster for his next movie, and I was just like, yep, I'm in. Yep, I will be there. And I want him to do more. I mean, like, the interesting thing about Jordan Peele is he has been involved in some less popular projects. He was involved in the Twilight Zone reboot, which I only watched 1 episode of and just kind of bounced off. But I don't think he was directing it. I think he was just producing it. So Jordan Peele as a director, my butt's in that seat for sure.
Yeah, he may be my number 6 actually. But yeah, that's a great pick. I would go see any movie that he put out. I think that's true.
His next film is a movie called Nope.
Okay.
All we know about it is it stars Steven Yeun, and it was written and directed by Jordan Peele. And the picture is a cloud hovering over a town with the tail of a kite coming out of it. And what is the plot? It says, here's what IMDb says: plot kept under wraps. We know nothing about this movie, and I don't need to know anything about this movie.
So excited.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right, what's the number 4?
Wes Anderson.
Good pick.
I think that I have loved possibly every Wes Anderson movie, and like increasingly so as his career has gone on. So in conclusion, if I hear that he's making another movie, obviously I will go see that. And my only hesitation is, in fact, his movies tend to like emotionally destroy me. And so that's like, I don't like rush to the theater excited and ready to have fun. I'm like, shit. but I have to go see it because it's going to be amazing. So, Wes Anderson.
That's a good pick. He has a movie coming out this year that I am extremely excited about. The French Dispatch. I think the only reason why Wes Anderson maybe didn't make it into my top 5 is because the last movie he made, Isle of Dogs, it didn't work on me. I need to revisit it. I need to go back and give it some time. But I remember walking out of the theater just going, man, this movie just did not do it for me at all. And so it's not that I'm not going to go see a Wes Anderson movie when it comes out, but it's just when having to rank these people, that is the freshest thing on my mind.
Yeah, and I think you might appreciate it more on a second. I mean, my kids loved it, which kind of surprised me, honestly, because it's a weird movie. But then they wanted to watch it a bunch, and I watched it a couple times, and I was like, okay, this is great. So, yes. What's your number 4?
My number 4 is Mr. Edgar Wright. Gosh, what can we say about Edgar Wright that hasn't already been said? He is one of the most kinetic and energetic directors I've ever seen. I love the act of watching his movies fills me with joy, and I'm there. Look at Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, World's End, Scott Pilgrim, Baby Driver, and now Last Night in Soho. I don't know if you've seen the trailer for that, but he's making a horror film, and it looks so fucking good. And then as we talked about this week on our Patreon exclusive Other Levels of the Tower, he's also doing The Running Man, which is just perfect. And I love Edgar Wright. I love the way he sees the world, and I love the way he directs movies. It's just, they're so fun. They're just so fun. And I will be there opening night for any of them.
Yeah, that's another one where I kind of forgot about him, but he would be on my extended list. Yeah, like you said, I mean, gosh, so many classics.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right. My I guess this is my last one, my last pick.
Yep, this is it.
And it is David Fincher. Again, literally will go see any movie if I hear that David Fincher's behind it.
All right, Matt, I don't want to start something here. But have you watched Mank yet?
Oh shit. Apparently that's a lie. No, I just forgot about the existence of Mank is the truth.
Gotcha.
Hold on, let me add this to my list that I actually have, because here's the problem. Before I had an actual list, I would just say that I would add things to my list, and then I wouldn't. But now
you have a real list now?
I have a real list now.
Out of curiosity, how many things are currently on that list?
Just a second. Let me scroll to it while you tell me your last pick.
So with my final one, I actually struggled on this for a while. There's tons of great names. I thought about Rian Johnson. I thought about Ryan Coogler. I thought about Taika Waititi. I thought about Quentin Tarantino as well. I did think about Wes Anderson, but the one I landed on surprised me a little bit. The one I kept being pulled back to was the director Greta Gerwig, which, like Jordan Peele, is another relatively new director on the scene. She's only directed 2 films so far, but I've absolutely loved those films. So I knew her as an actress on a bunch of Noah Baumbach movies that I really liked. And Frances Ha was my favorite movie of 2012. I really liked her. And then she got into directing, and she kind of came out with Lady Bird, a movie I adored. And then 2019's Little Women was so good. So good. I couldn't believe what she did structurally and directorially with Little Women. Took a movie that I had seen before in different versions, a story that I knew really well, made it seem new and fresh and inventive, channeled the performances of incredible actors. And I'm just here for Greta Gerwig now, and I just want to see what she ends up doing next. I think it's been announced she's making a Barbie movie, which like the doll Barbie. That's fascinating to me, and I will be there for whatever Greta Gerwig does.
I don't think I've seen any of those movies, so you've definitely put a director on my radar.
You got to see Little Women, man. You have to see Little Women. It's so fucking good. It's so good.
Cool. I can't really comment because I haven't seen it, but I will say that I have 13 movies on my movie to watch list.
How often do you cross them off?
Not yet.
All right, Matt. Let's go through our 5 again and just remind people of what they are. So
Okay.
what were your 5?
James Cameron, Denis Villeneuve, Gore Verbinski, Wes Anderson, and David Fincher.
And my 5 were M. Night Shyamalan, Jordan Peele, Denis Villeneuve, Edgar Wright, and Greta Gerwig. So I guess technically, by default, those are my top 5 directors right now.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting. Obviously, a younger Scott would have had Quentin Tarantino on there. And it's not that I'm not going to go see a Quentin Tarantino movie when it comes out. It's just, it feels like a lower priority for me right now in my life.
Tarantino would have been on my list, except I also still haven't seen Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah, so by default, you can't put him on your list.
Right.
Yeah.
And which, I mean, Fincher by rights shouldn't have been on my list, but he was. So
I think the only excuse I'll give you on that one is technically the prompt was go see it in the theater on opening day, and Mank was only on Netflix.
Well, there you go.
I think you skate by on a technicality.
One by technicality. All right.
All right, folks, that is it. Those are our top 5. We now want to hear from you. What are your top 5 directors that you would see on opening night for sure? Let us know, please. We'd love to get feedback on this. You can reach out to us at doofmedia@gmail.com or over on Twitter at doofmedia. You can also contact us about this episode, A Cure for Wellness, or let us know what you think of James Cameron and what you're most excited about in our exploration of the films of James Cameron coming up in the future.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. I also thought it was fun that we only had one director in common on that list, which is Villeneuve.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're not already subscribed to this podcast, we encourage you to click that subscribe button, and then you will never miss an episode. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play, and pretty much anywhere else podcasts can be found.
And you can find this and all of our shows over at our website, doofmedia.com. And if you like what we do here and want to support us, consider becoming a patron of Doof Media. Head on over to patreon.com/doofmedia and pledge at any of our various levels. At each level, you get bonus stuff. At the Doof Troop level, which is our $10 level, you get access to a suite of bonus monthly podcasts, including that one we already talked about, Other Levels of the Tower. But that also includes Freeman Bros, where Matt himself, the man right here on the other side of this microphone, gets together with his brother once a month to talk about, well, lately just video games, but usually some other things.
Yeah, we've been on a video game jag. So, if you're a fan of video games, come listen to a couple of guys who don't know much about video games talk about them. And also Scott is on there and he knows a lot more about video games.
I don't know if that's actually true. I have opinions. It doesn't mean they're right opinions. Another show we have on there is called The High Ground, where Elliot and Ruben and Elliot's sister Georgia go through. They started with the Star Wars prequels, and then they moved on to all 5 of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. I don't actually know where they're going next, but they review, I don't want to say bad movies, because there's 3 of them aren't bad, but they review.
Yeah, they seem to review big bombastic action adventure movies.
Yes,
which have been poorly critically reviewed, but may have something going for them.
Yeah, maybe they should review John Carter. I think that'd be.
They should. I'd love to revisit John Carter, because I said on a podcast the other day that John Carter is not a bad movie, and then I reflected on that and realized that I actually don't know if that's true or not.
I think John Carter is a bad movie.
I think it may actually be a bad movie, but I hadn't seen it in a super long time. Fair. Yeah, please consider rating and reviewing the Doofcast on Apple Podcasts, because those reviews really do help us get more exposure. And then more people listen to the show, and then there's more folks chatting in the various chat places where they chat.
And that's always fun. Literally always fun.
It is.
That's going to do it for us this week, folks. Next week, I believe it's time for a Council of Doof episode, but we haven't quite landed on what that's going to be because I forgot to set up the poll. So I'm going to go do that right now, but we'll be back next week with a new episode on a new movie. It's going to be fun. We'll see you next week.
My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say. My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say.